Okay, we should be live. How's everybody doing? Please comment in the live chat how you're doing, how the sound is, um, and how the picture is. Uh, right before this stream, is a giant spider of some kind, not a brown recluse or anything, but not a friendly looking spider, crawled out from underneath the bookshelf next to my bench here that I'm sitting on, and I ripped a piece of paper to go and squish it, which I always feel bad about, but I also don't want that spider around here. There's some spiders I like, but not that one. And as soon as I ripped the piece of paper, it ran back behind where I'm sitting. So it's somewhere behind this bench. And, I'm going to try and hope it doesn't come out again, but it gets to live another day. I didn't know spiders could hear, actually. Like I never really thought about it, but it heard me rip that paper and it ran immediately. But please hit the like button and comment in the chat how everything sounds. And uh, hopefully sounds good. Great. We should keep this one. We're going to keep this one pretty short. It's going to be kind of an AMA style, but also wanted to talk a bit about GROK specifically, and really LLMs in general, but GROK more specifically, and how it's a little different than ChatGPT, and what the dangers are of LLMs that nobody's talking about, actually, that aren't, oh my gosh, it's going to be so much better than us at everything, and we're going to become irrelevant, and what happens when we're not the most intelligent thing anymore. None of that is, I think, actually that important to talk about in the way that it's being talked about. There's certainly concerns about how LLMs are able to do things that much better than people, but automated systems, and I call um, AI, what we call AI systems, dynamic network algorithms, or DNAs, on this channel, because that is a description of what they are, and it's important that we properly define what these systems are, in a way that we can understand, that allows us to understand what these systems are. And I think that calling them artificial intelligence is very confusing. And in fact, to even the people who are working at these companies that are developing these programs, these systems, and even the people who understand these systems well enough to build them, I don't think really understand. Not all of them, some of them do, but it's few, actually. I would say it's the minority of those people actually understand what's going on, and what these systems are. And so uh, I tend to like the term DNA, even though it might be confusing because it's people think of DNA, um, the chemical protein code of organic life forms, but it's I don't even know if that's the right term for it, to be quite honest. The right description, if you follow this content and Sentient Singularity Theory, you should understand why there's like lots of issues, contextual issues with even saying that that's what DNA is. Um, but back to artificial intelligence, these systems, I think most of people's concerns are not as un, they're more confused than we realize. I saw, I think it was one of the CEOs of one of the big tech companies. I forgot who it was. You can look it up. And he said that in the near future, it's not that AI will take you won't lose your job to AI. You will lose your job to someone who uses AI. That is a very true thing, I think. But it's much truer than this idea that like it's going to take everyone's jobs. At least right now, it's I don't see that that's the main issue. I think the main issue is that it is really accelerating the deterioration of our language and the context of our language, and therefore the understanding of terms and the definition of words that are not just general, or not general, but not just kind of specific labels for things. They are descriptions of properties that are commonly associated with sentient beings. And when these get confused, the issue is that we're not confused about something out there. It confuses us about us, what we are, who we are. This is the real danger. And not just that, but when it comes to the truth, when we're talking about what, Elon Musk talks about the truth AI, that's what he wants GROK to be. What does this mean? To him, it meant not artificially injecting political, political biases and things like that. I don't think that is something that is the main concern. And I understand why people worry about that. I mean, I do think that you shouldn't be intentionally trying to obscure results. But what the reality is that what we need to understand about these chatbots is that they are basically just the next generation search engine. That's really what they are. They're not your future technological girlfriend. If you think that is what it is, then you're going to pursue a very fruitless path. I saw, who was it? This is the guy that invested in Facebook, Gary V, that guy, and he said that your children will marry like AIs, something like that. This was his prediction. Your children will marry AIs. That is the most horrible thing I've ever heard. And I'm not saying it's false, but it is false. It's a lie, but it doesn't mean that people won't try to do that. And if society is that confused to where it allows for that legally, then we're in big trouble, big trouble. Because then we've already kind of started to misunderstand the definition of marriage. And if you're really like allowing for that legally, then basically it's like saying somebody's marrying Bing, the search engine. That's like what is basically he's predicting. And he doesn't realize that that's what he's predicting because he's confused about what these dynamic network algorithms, specifically LLMs, are. They're just advanced, dynamic, responsive next-gen search engines. Their results are not going to be true or false. They can, in some ways, they can perform produce calculative results. I mean, all their results are calculative, but specifically when speaking in a mathematical context, they can perform calculations. But I mean, so can every computer does this. It's just like expressed. It's basically a next gen calculator as well. But so is Google. And it's been that way for a while, so that's not really that different. But when people start saying things like this, like your children will marry AI, instead of like recognizing that this is just the results that you get from these dynamic network algorithms is just a reflection of information that we have already put out there. It doesn't tell the truth in terms of like what happened in this situation. What does this mean? Absent artificial manipulations of results, which happen in GROK as well, and it's very apparent. Um, it's still just going to be a reflection of what we put out there. It's not the truth. Like, that's not, you can't pre-program something for the truth. Like, it doesn't know the truth. Especially, it doesn't know anything. It has no experience. It has no firsthand experience to be able to even ground the information that it spits out and test it against anything that is understood firsthand, which means truly. That's how you understand anything, is you've experienced it firsthand. And it has no firsthand experience, so it has no understanding. But one of the things that we are starting to do that is going to confuse people like Gary Vee is we are in an effort to differentiate these, GROK from ChatGPT. One of them has been made cute to seem cute, and it's a marketing gimmick. It is meant specifically to manipulate you into being entertained, and so that you don't use the tool, you use their LLM versus their competitor. So you use GROK instead of ChatGPT. And I'm not saying GROK isn't useful. GROK is extremely useful, and even its integration into Twitter, which honestly, Twitter is a counterproductive platform anyways. I mean, it always has been. That's not a political statement. It's true of TikTok too. It's just true of all short form content centered content platforms. It's, if you can only write a few sentences, maximum, maybe one sentence, and a 30-second video, and that's like what is encouraged, even if it's not the limit, it is what is encouraged, and that's what the platform is centered around. That type of content is not going to be very useful. The only time that I will say it can be sometimes useful is if I'm trying to figure out, like, really quick how to cook something. And I go to YouTube for that, because I can choose between, do I want to watch a short on how to cook a steak on a cast iron skillet really quickly, or do I want to watch a 5-minute video of Gordon Ramsay teaching me how to do it? And you can choose. But when a platform is entirely that, it's going to incentivize not useful content that people will gravitate towards more because it's useful, but much more towards what is immediately entertaining, like that, and everybody knows this. You don't even have to have a TikTok to know this. I don't even have a TikTok that I get on. I do have a TikTok. I have like 4 shorts on there that are just funny. And I posted many years ago, probably 5 years ago, and I haven't logged on since. And because even though things I put up were funny, like, they're not, I put them up also on my personal Instagram, and like, that's a better place as like a timeline sharing things. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can. It's linked below. I have one for this channel and also one for for personal. And it's kind of like my public, where I share my personal life publicly. I don't do that on Facebook. But it is a different type of platform, than TikTok. Even then, it's much more constructive. But Twitter, this is a side tangent, but I will say that, like, GROK being integrated into Twitter and being able to use it as like community notes and things like that, that is helpful. But I feel like it's a Band-Aid on top. The point was, it's a Band-Aid on top of an already like flawed platform that isn't very helpful. But if you're going to have that type of platform, then maybe it's a good thing to have GROK integrated into it, or an LLM, fact-checking system that isn't like isn't sensorial, but is does help hold people to account a little bit. I think that's a good thing. When you check community notes or whatever, I think that's like if you're gonna have that kind of integration, that's probably all right. But again, it's a band-aid. But the point is that Grok has been made to have personality, and I was. It's hard to speak about this because I don't want to say I was speaking to Grok because that's wrong. Like I was prompting responses from Grok or in Grok about this topic, and I am going to share them, but we're also going to do it live here a bit. And what was interesting is that Grok's responses were very much just, that XAI is giving, fake personality to Grok for the sake of maximizing user engagement. I mean, it was just straight up like honest, but it was tough to eventually get it to respond with, a response that basically was accurate as to what should the goal of an LLM be. And should you sacrifice user engagement if maximizing it meant confusing the user? And that's what I was like. I don't want to say asking it. This is why it's tough again to speak about this stuff, because I mean, am I asking it? I'm asking a question, but like, am I asking Grok the question? I don't really know if that's the right way to word that. But comment in the chat what your thoughts are. Also, if you have any personal questions for me, I'm also going to go and answer any that are in the chat if I want, and then I will go over some questions that were posted in the comments of previous videos, as I do in most AMA style videos. But please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. But here we go. Let's go to trying to save my here. Let's see here. Okay. Here. I saved my, I don't know if interaction is the best way of putting it, but this is it. So I said, should XAI value maximizing user engagement of Grok or maximizing user understanding of Grok? And this was the response. XAI's priorities for Grok, whether to maximize user engagement or user understanding, depend on its mission to advance our collective understanding of the universe. This is, I don't know how much I agree with this mission. I'm not saying I'm against this mission. I don't know how much that makes sense as the mission of Grok. I need to think more about it. Like, if I were to create an LLM, what would my mission statement be? I'm gonna think about that. That's actually a good question. While creating a practical, user-friendly AI tool, your question builds on our prior discussions about Grok's personality, sentience, misconceptions, and AI's nature. Okay, so it's definitely thinking about, or not thinking, but it's incorporating, previous prompts that I've prompted. So I'll evaluate. See, this is not good. Like when it says things like this. That's a problem. That's confusing. There is no I in Grok. Evaluate both goals, their trade-offs, and which aligns best for XAI. Okay, so maximizing user engagement. Definition. Okay. A highly engaging grok with its playful personality, inspired by Douglas Adams or Jarvis, attracts a diverse audience, including non-technical users. This aligns with XAI's goal of making a tool for everyone, not just experts, as engagement drives adoption. Sustained use. Engagement encourages users to return, ask more questions, and explore topics. Market differentiation. In a competitive AI landscape, Grok's unique personality sets it apart from other LLMs. Yeah, that's true, but I don't think that's a good thing. As noted in our discussion about its design, enhanced, like our discussion. Like, I don't like that. It's not our discussion, but is it? I don't know. This is so new. We don't have history, a linguistic history in this context of interaction with LLMs. Like, our history with it is basically like, you asking Siri for directions or what the weather will be like tomorrow, and then saying thank you at the end, and then realizing that you shouldn't have said thank you afterwards because it's a toaster oven. Like, that's like our history with it, and it's still the same. That's the reality. It's just a little bit more dynamic. A conversational tone makes complex topics more approachable, as seen in my responses. This is a problem. It really is a problem. It's not just me. This is not me nitpicking. This is actually a problem. I don't know if this word is a problem, but this word is a problem. This word is a problem. This is a problem. They are actually false. This is not me disliking this. This is actually false information being given in this response. That's a problem. You want the truth AI, or do you want to maximize user engagement? You have to choose. Risk of misconception. As you raised in your question about sentience, an engaging human-like personality might lead users to falsely believe Grok is sentient, potentially causing confusion about its nature as a computational tool, not a conscious entity, per your intelligence and AI questions. It's not even the danger isn't just in people thinking that Grok is sentient. It's in them not eventually being confused about their own nature. Superficial interaction, prioritizing engagement might lead users to treating Grok as an entertaining meant rather than a tool for deep understanding, undermining XAI's mission to advance knowledge. Okay. Maximizing user understanding. What should XAI prioritize? This was good. XAI should prioritize maximizing user understanding. Correct. As the primary goal, with engagement as a secondary but critical enabler. Okay, that's fair enough, but it's secondary. Do I think that this is actually what is going to happen? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is not what is happening. And it is not what's going to happen. As much as I would hope that I'm wrong, and I do hope that I'm wrong, I don't think that I am wrong. And the thing is that if Elon Musk and people at XAI decided, no, actually, we're going to stop it from ever using first-person pronouns ever again, that would be great. But the issue is that another one will pop up that will do it. and will make it seem witty and funny and all kinds of things that XAI is currently doing, and not just XAI. I mean, look at you can make LLMs now, or you can basically prompt like what I mean, I guess kind of an LLM, but it's like a prompt response in a way, but it's like an LLM that's prompted in a response in Meta in Instagram, and then I don't know if you've seen this, but you get I get like suggested interactions with these AI chatbots, these DNA chatbots in Instagram, and I've only engaged with one once, and it was called Argue Master, and it admitted that I beat it, and, just for but it it was it was about how it was not good that these like personality based LLMs were not a good thing, is what my was my argument. Basically, I forgot the specifics of it. I have it saved somewhere, but where literally like there's a person photo, or not a photo, but a generated image of a person that is that you're meant to be speaking with. Some of them are kind of just funny and ridiculous, like an egg. It's just a picture of an egg. Talk to an egg. See how an egg responds. What it's like to talk to an egg. There is no what it's like to talk to an egg though. So it's ridiculous, but and it's just meant to be funny. But it does get confusing when you start really like showing images of what is assumed to be a sentient being. One of them was like Donald Trump. It's like, talk to Donald Trump, but it's not Trump. It's just a LLM that is taking statements that are online that are recorded of that Donald Trump has said, and then it's generating responses in a similar style. And it's interesting and it's funny, and everybody's seen these funny deep fakes of the presidents playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, but it seems harmless enough, but it's not actually. There is no line that I can see right now that is clear between a funny video that is generated, that's fake obviously, of Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Barack Obama arguing about Star Wars, and a deep fake that is extremely damaging to somebody's reputation and fake. People can say, well, the intention is different, but the intention doesn't matter once it's put out there for other, like, it's not about the intention of the person that made it. It's about the intention of the person viewing it. And you can't control that. And so this really has opened my eyes a bit to this rule in Islam that seems increasingly deeply wise, but also inconvenient, but deeply wise, that forbids the creation of images of sentient beings, even like paintings, sculptures. But you take that to its ultimate conclusion, it's like deep fakes of sentient beings, whether that is a rabbit or Donald Trump or you or your children, like, or your spouse. Like, these things, there's no line between that. And I'm really starting to see the wisdom in that. I mean, it's just interesting to think that these rules that seem so archaic and outdated, but they don't really seem outdated. It's that you don't understand their context, and it's because it's like that doesn't seem to make sense in an ancient context, Why would it be wrong to paint a person? Like, you know what's a painting and what's not. But what if it's now the internet and it's deep fake video of somebody who actually exists? Do you know if that's a person or not? Now you don't. And now this rule has a context that seems to make a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Where it didn't have that context prior. That it had no context that made sense, that was understood within the firsthand experience of most people. There's some deep wisdom there, and it's against Islam to create deepfakes, and that's amazing. Whatever, say what you want about like organized religion or whatever, like that's some prophetic stuff there, because who saw that coming? Not me. I will say that. World Wide Web. What should it say then? Grok instead of me? Yeah, it should. It should say Grok. Hi, I'm Siri. No. It shouldn't say hi, I'm. No, I. Could be like Siri here, I guess. Maybe. Grok here. That's better than I'm here. This is a problem, but to use first person pronouns. It should refer to itself in the third person, because it doesn't have a first person experience. That is what it should do. What is the smoothest way to do that? I don't know yet, but it shouldn't sound like a human. Like, if you're like, well, that sounds awkward, it's like, well, because it's not meant to be like you're interacting with a someone. It's a something. But what's really awkward is when you start to think that a something is someone. That's a problem. The line between reality and fake has disappeared. That's true. It's getting increasingly blurry. Everything is a blurred mush. That's why we must come together, because we are all that is real. Is real. Yes. I like that. It's true. In Islam, they believe only God is capable of creating sentience, and painting or creating statues is competing against him. In some ways, yeah, that is what it's said. It's like it's like thought I saw that spider from the beginning of the stream, from before the stream, but it's not. It's it's like you're creating a like a hollowed out version of something that he has done, but that's true. I mean, I agree with that, but it's also just so it's disingenuous. It's disingenuous. I have a Muslim friend, and I speak to him about this sometimes, and there's so much, I really talk to him about it a lot, and it's like, like I have a photo of my wife and me and my daughter on my desk that I'm looking at right now, and it's just a photo of us, and is that in some Muslim households that would not be okay, and I spoke to him about it, and he has photos, but what's interesting is like, I also have Orthodox Jewish friends, like like Hasidic Jewish friends, that and they're like, their children don't have like stuffed animals, and like my daughter has stuffed animals, and she has like a toy rubber duck that she loves to carry around and play with, and I get conflicted about it a bit now, and I grew up, I had toy lizards and snakes and toy animals of all kinds, and like, I like the more realistic looking, the more I like them, and I actually would take them and I would like hide them in the bushes and like my dad would be like doing gardening and he would like find one and freak out. And I thought it was funny, but it was probably not that funny, but it was a little funny. But it's it's like, is it really funny that I'm, I'm lying, in some way? It's like, that's not a real snake in the bushes, and it's scaring my dad for no reason. But I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's not, that doesn't make it right. That's what I will say. And but then with my friend who's Muslim, he'll be like, sometimes he'll tell me sometimes people will have like stuffed animals that don't have eyes, like they won't have any eyes for the sake of like specifically it not being an attempt to show sentience to imitate sentience. And I think that that's kind of interesting because when we think about somebody dying, like, and no longer being sentient, like, first thing that we expect is their eyes to be closed. And if they're not, then people close them, and some cultures would place objects over the eyes, like to cover the eyes. There's something about the eyes that is important there. And then my Orthodox Jewish friends, like, they don't have stuffed animals. Like, they have like stuffed like Torahs and things like that, like a little Torah that's like stuffed, and it's funny. And but it's like, I noticed that it's not the fact that they have a stuffed Torah that's interesting, it's that there's not stuffed animals that's interesting. So it must be some kind of similar, there must be something similar in Judaism that that is like that, like Islam, on an Orthodox level. And maybe I'll look it up in a minute. And I should know that, actually. I just kind of assumed that it was there. I just don't know if there's a term for it, what the term is for it. I'm sure that there is a term for it because I've noticed that it's the same. Like, there's no stuffed animals in their house, but they have like stuffed non-sentient things, like fake apples and fake, like Torahs and stuff, but like not like fake bears, and but this is like when you have dynamic network algorithms, like what happens when it's like a real lifelike looking, not a real, but like a lifelike looking video of a bear, but it's, I don't know, dance on the hula or something like that. And it's like, you've never seen a bear in real life, so you don't know. And it's just going to confuse people. And that seems so ridiculous, but it's not. I've been watching my daughter. She loves lions right now. Like, she's obsessed with lions. And she's obsessed with animals. She's definitely my daughter. And she... we watched the first Lion King. She loves that movie. It's a masterpiece of a movie, I will say. Like, as an adult watching it, every time I watch it, and I've watched it probably a dozen times this year alone because of my daughter. She watches it a lot, and there's something new I notice every time. It is a masterpiece of a movie. It's not just like a cute little movie. It is a masterpiece. And then even the second one, I will say, like, the soundtrack is pretty good. But I watch those two with her, and sometimes I like, we'll just put them on, and eventually I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's try the new one that they made. The like live action looking one, but it's not. The reality is it's just animated still, like the one from whatever 2019 or whatever it was. Like, it's just animated. It's just made to look real. And I watched that one. Not as good. But what's interesting is like one of them's made to look lifelike and the other one is made to not. And I was sitting there thinking, like, what is better? Is it better if you're going to like create some type of representation of a sentient being is it best to create it in a way that is made to not look real? Um, and then if you're going to do that, though, is a photo of your family, like, that's made to look perfectly real, like it's just made to look like a, a picture of God's creation instead of like a creation of your own. Like, is that what is, what I'm trying to get at is, like, there are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum here, but also like not, because neither one is an attempt to recreate or to create a representation of something that it looks real, like it's of someone that looks real. It's not meant to be that. It's meant to be obviously fake, or to be just a picture of not that isn't a creation of yours. It's just it just showcases a creation of God. It's interesting. I think about this stuff a lot. It's very, very, very deep subject, and it's becoming increasingly contextually relevant with the creation of LLMs and video DNAs that are going to become dynamic network algorithms that are going to become even more accessible without paying super premiums right now, like you have to, because it takes a lot of computing power. But you could make better. You could recreate the Lion King and have it look more realistic than the 2019 one that they made, that is made to look realistic. In probably now, actually. And that's going to be accessible to anybody, and not just anybody, but everybody. And if that's the case, it's really going to be tough to know what's real and what's not. But if what that's why it's so important to recognize the limits of your understanding and your knowledge. So, like, if you watch my videos where I talk about like the one I talked about with Dave Farina and Eric Weinstein and Kurchai Mungol recently, I've tried to focus on, what is making sure that we understand the limit of what we know. When I say know, I mean know, like truly know to be true. And that's much more important than knowing a bunch of facts and things that you think you know, but you don't really know. And maybe you do know, but maybe you don't. But you have memorized, information. What's much more important is knowing what you truly can know and what you truly can't know. Anything that you're told by someone else is not something that you truly can know, to whether or not it's true. That doesn't mean that you can't be more confident or less confident. It just means, like, you have to recognize at the end of the day that you can't truly know that it's true or not, unless you personally experienced it. And so this is another reason why gossip is, like, so frowned upon in, like, deeply wise moral texts and religious texts as well. In Islam and in Judaism and in Christianity, like in much more orthodox circles, like gossip is something that's very, very, very frowned upon. And I remember hearing about how it's forbidden. And this was before I was a theist, and being like, okay, like, people like to talk about other people. It's not that big of a deal. But the more you think about it and the more you realize, like, you can't know. It's about, like, you're about, like, spreading information about people that you don't know whether or not it's true. If you do know it's true, it's because you know the person, and then it's not gossip anymore, like, for the most part. Like, and if you're telling somebody who also knows them or who needs to know that information, whatever it is, like, it's not gossip at that point. It's it's actually, like, discussion. But if you're talking about some things about somebody that you can't truly know, like that is gossip and it's not good. It's like a deep fake, basically. But you don't even know it's a deep fake. You know? You're it's very, this stuff is deep. It really is. It's not, most people would not find this stuff interesting, and it's because they're just not thinking about it as holistically as eventually we all will, because when it's you who is in the deep fake, you're gonna think about this stuff. You're not gonna think about this stuff. You're gonna feel about this stuff, and that is from a first person perspective, not from a third person perspective. Um, from a first person perspective, that's a big deal. It really like changes your level of understanding. I think about it a lot, and I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I was a wedding photographer, guys. Like that was my job for years, and I'm not against it, but uh, I think about that though. You know, my daughter has toy animals. Like I bought them for her. Like I think about it, and I watched Lion King with her, and I think about it. Like which ones. I will say this though, I don't really think I'm gonna watch the newer ones anymore with her. I don't think I would want her even watching those. Um, I think I'd want her to watch the old ones instead. Not just because they're better, because they are, but because they're not so confusing. Like I, you know, is if she's seeing a lion that looks real, like the one at the zoo, and it's talking, like, and then she goes to the zoo and it's not talking, like, what does that do to her? I don't know. I didn't grow up with that actually. We grew up with animation wasn't that good. you know, it just wasn't. It was very obvious what was a real lion and what was a real snake and what wasn't. Um, at least as far as I can remember, and I can remember very far back actually about that stuff. But it's funny. I had all these toy snakes as a kid, also, like I said, and I had them in this bucket, and my um, I like would dump them out and when on the patio, and I would play with them, and I was probably like 2, and I don't remember this specifically. I remember being this young and having them, but like I don't remember the specific event, but because it didn't happen to me. But my mom went out there once and she was putting them away in the bucket, and she picked one up and it moved, and it was a king snake that was wild, and it had crawled onto the patio into like all the rest of the snakes, and she called the fire department and they came and like got it apparently, but and they thought it was hilarious because here's this kid with like all these toy snakes, and we didn't have any pet snakes or anything, and um uh I wasn't allowed, and so it was like it was a wild snake that like had come onto the patio into like my bin of toy animals, and my mom was even confused for a second. She didn't even know what was real and what wasn't until it moved. Stuff is there's like, that's a kind of a funny story, but it's also like, only funny because it was a king snake that's not dangerous, not a rattlesnake. What if it was a rattlesnake that she grabbed? Would have not been funny. It's interesting to think about. I'm glad it was a king snake. All right. Let's go to the chat. I can't be on here for too long, but let's see. Also, that is what would lead to idolatry. Yeah, it does lead to idolatry. What's up, Tyler? What's up, Addie? How's it going? I will respond to you also in private, your message. Uh, there are lots of loopholes in Judaism from what I've seen. It's not loopholes, but people don't realize is like it's not just loopholes. It's there Jews definitely test the limits of things, but like that's kind of our job in some ways, but it's like it's it's not like it should still you should still stay true to what God's intention is, and not break rules. But like it's not just about like whether or not you technically are following it. Like this is the problem with like getting too legalistic, which is something that Islam and Judaism can do, but um especially like Jewish law just can get really um just has sometimes a culture of that can be too legalistic. I know that. I mean, every single religious tradition has its own quirks, and that's one in Judaism. And I say that as somebody who is Jewish and who engages in like you know uh, that tradition. But there's also plenty of people that don't do that, and they do think about God's intention constantly, and they want to love God as best they can. Um, but it is important to to try and keep God's intentions in mind as best you can understand them. Obviously you're not God. You don't know exactly always the totality of his intentions, but you should try and remember that he has intentions. Like he has goals and feelings, and it's not just a he's not just a legal textbook. He's a being with feelings and goals, and that we should. That's the whole point of laws and rules and morals. So it's just important to remember when you navigate these things. But I wouldn't say that there's like loopholes, but there are certain things that like I don't like. For instance, in Islam and Judaism and Christianity, in all three of the theological texts, there of the scriptures of all three of them, it is pretty clear to me, and I think it's pretty clear in general, but whether or not people want to admit it or not is a different thing, that all three of these theological traditions, the scriptures of these theological traditions, prescribe the covering of hair in women, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I think it's right. I think it's true. It's not something even we do in my house, but that's not because it's not up to me. It has to be done by choice, by a woman. Like it should not be. I don't believe it should be forced. I think it has to be done because she wants to do it. But men, and we have to be honest, anybody, about what we think is true, and what I think is true is I think God wants women to cover their hair, and my wife knows that. and, but there's a culture of not just flat out ignoring that passage in the Bible, in the New Testament, and in and in Christian communities it's just pretty much ignored. In Islam it's usually followed, and in Judaism it's interesting because in many communities it's followed, but and then there's some communities where they cover their hair with a wig. It's called a shaitel, and like this is where I would say like people's like idea of that's a loophole. Yeah, I would say I don't think that that's right. It's I think that it's not honoring to. Yes, is it like legally? Are you doing it? Are you following it? Yeah, but is it honoring God's intentions? No, I don't think so. Um, and but you know, should you just ignore it? No. But everybody's on their own journey with these things, and you can't project you should be honest about your understanding or your interpretations about things and what you think is true, and um, and everybody should. That's what we should do. We should recognize that none of us have all the answers, and that that's why people. It's very important that people do things by their own choice for the most part, especially when it comes to morals. It's not if you're doing something because it's being forced on you, then it's not a moral. It's not even available to you as a moral decision anymore. It's not like you have the opportunity to even do what is good and be able to be fully um fully actualizing of the moral good that comes from doing something that is good because it's good, because you're doing it for God, or for someone else, not just because you're doing it because you're being forced, and that if you don't do it, then you're gonna uh I don't know, your husband will be mad, and or you will get thrown in jail or something like that. Like that's you should not murder because like it's against the law. Like you should not murder because it's wrong and God told you not to, but like not because you'll go to jail if you do. That's not. I'm not saying that's. Is it should it be I'm not saying it shouldn't be illegal. I'm just saying like you should do the right thing because it's the right thing, and because which it's not even just because it's the right thing, it's because it's what God wants. And because it's good for others, like it's good for someone's, um and that's why. That's what makes something moral. um but yeah, here, let's go to the chat. More companies are going to do this and add some sort of avatar with every LLM for more engagement. Yes, exactly. They're doing it all the time. I hate it. I hate it, actually. Like it really, 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 really bothers me, um, a lot, because it's so obviously disingenuous. And yes, I will say like a lot of people are confused, but if like you don't, if you need to create it, then it doesn't, then it's not real. Um, you know, like if you need to give it an avatar and you need to give it this personality and all this stuff, it's like it's not real. Um, God can create sentient beings, but we cannot. And but I think that part of the problem is again is that people are confused by it, and I don't know. It's not good. So you hate women now? I don't. I don't hate women. I love women. Like I have a wife. She is my most important person in the world to me. Like I why would I hate women? Maybe you're joking. I bet you also hate the T app. I don't know what the T app is. What's the T app? Is that because of is it like a gossip app? I heard that like the Gen Z calls gossip tea. I don't. I mean, I'm a millennial, so like I don't call gossip tea. But um, maybe you're joking. Um, I'm out. Okay, good talk. I'm out. Grok refuses to have a gender. It's like a spoiled brat. Hello from Sri Lanka. My ChatGPT is a girl. Her name is Anna. Your ChatGPT is not a girl. Your ChatGPT is not a being. Um, Grok refuses to have a gender. That's good, actually. I'm glad that Grok refuses to have a gender. I can't fathom how people still believe in a god, man created God, not the other way around. I think that your definition of God is not the same as mine. Um, Existence is a singular sentient being that is creating additional sentient beings within itself. That is the definition of God, is that initial and eternal self-referential information system that is inevitable, that is a sentient being, that is existence itself. That is God. There is no other definition of God that is true. Any other definition is redundant and is able to be, you're able to use other terms to as labels for it as well, and God as a singular term that is specifically defined. That is the only definition that you will eventually land on if you think about it deeply enough. And that is not something that we created. That's not someone we created. Has Tyler ever covered Stuart Hameroff and microtubules and consciousness? I guess I can search his channel. I have covered a little bit of Roger Penrose in the way past. It's been years, and I've watched some of the stuff on microtubules. I'm not so convinced on it being a necessary component to consciousness. I don't think that it is. Sentient Singularity Theory will include sentient structures that are sentient beings that are that do not have microtubules. But that doesn't mean there isn't something very interesting about them that is relevant to information processing. But I would say it is definitely, according to my work, it seems to not be a relevant structure, to a necessary structure to sentience. Sentience is precedes the existence of microtubules. I mean, it precedes the existence of anything. It is existence, in my theory, is a single self-referential information system that is entirely self-referential, and that means self-aware and sentient. So basically, existence is a sentient being that has always existed, and that the nature of existence as a structure is that it is a being, it is someone, inevitably, and I think it's logically inevitable that that's the case. And if that's the case, why would microtubules are not the a necessary component to having consciousness or sentience emerge? Like, sentience isn't emergent from non-sentience in my theory. So I don't focus on microtubules at all, because I just don't like, there's my theory just completely does not in any way suggest that they are a necessary component to conscious experience. But it's a good question. But I do think, I will say this, I think Roger Penrose is like one of the last great physicists, like true physicists. I'm not saying he's right about everything. I don't think he is. But I think that he is like an actual physicist, whereas I think that a lot of physicists today are not actually physicists, and they don't actually know what physics is. They're too trapped in defining it and contextualizing it within this third person, secondhand, not third person, but the secondhand information context that they inherited from school and their math classes. And I don't say that to be demeaning, I'm just being honest, versus like basing it in first person physical experience and defining physics as being, physical. The context of physics as being physical, physical impact, and it's you could just tell this by like the way that they define dimensions in physics these days, as like there's 11 dimensions in string theory. It's like they don't even know what those are, yet they'll say that there are 11 physical dimensions. You have no evidence of that, really. Like you've defined, and if you believe that that's the case and you don't know what the physical context of that would be, then you're no longer basing you're no longer in physics. So I'm not saying that you're not doing anything interesting. I'm just saying you're no longer like in the field of physics. Um, and you've kind of like you've kind of shifted the definition of dimension. Like, why are there you don't in most physicists today, like they would tell you that there's probably a mathematical basis for like there being four dimensions, and that we know because of math and stuff, and it's like that's not where that came from. I'm not saying there isn't a mathematical um uh representation of this that is coherent. I mean, I would imagine there is. I'm not mathematically literate enough to really like tell you one way or the other, but I would assume. Otherwise, there was a lot of calculations that have are being done that are for the sake of actually doing something physical, like calculating orbits and things like that, where there's a result that is able to be seen. But the understanding of those four dimensions comes from our experience in the physical world, initially at least. So, but I think that Penrose is one of the last great physicists, like true physicists. There's others emerging. I think like Eric Weinstein is one. And it's much like he doesn't have a degree in physics. I think he's a truer physicist than like Sean Carroll. Truly believe that. And it's not because that's how I feel. It's like you look at the way that they speak about physics, and one of them talks about like physical experience and a lot, and the other one does not as much. T is an app where women can share info about men they date. Okay. Yeah, that's not good. I mean, but like, you should not. Our dating is just messed up. Like dating is. I saw Ben Shapiro had this breakdown of this, and it was brilliant actually once. And I know a lot of people will rip on him. I will say this: I've worked with Ben many times in the past. Not anymore currently, but I used to. Ben has always been personally kind to everybody that I've ever seen him interact with, and honest to everybody that I've ever seen him interact with, and was always good to work with. Very humble, like personally. I like met him and his wife, and like it, like I have nothing bad to say about him. But and that's like stuff I know, from firsthand experience. People can say what they want, but like, do you know somebody is important to define whether or not something is gossip? But he was talking about once these like he saw some girl and she was upset about, I don't know, she was talking about some talking stages is what she said, like the talking stages of dating. This is just slang that was not around when I was dating. I'm married, so I don't. It's not a game that I'm still involved in, and and she was just talking about how it's confusing, and everybody that I know that is still dating is very confused. And when I was dating, we were also very confused, but we didn't realize it. Everybody now that I've spoken to who's still dating and not married, they know they're confused. I'm not gonna. I mean, maybe that's a good thing that they at least realize it. But Ben Shapiro was like, the problem is that there's no goal like to dating. Everybody has different goals, and those goals shift and change all the time. And like, he's basically saying the goal to dating needs to be like to find a spouse, like that's the goal always. Like it's, and I 100% agree with that. As it's just, if you're not looking for a spouse, you're wasting each other's time and emotional energy and hurting each other. There's nobody who does not get hurt in when you date and it's not for the sake of marriage alone. Like, whereas, and what I mean by that is, like, you don't continue the relationship if you've realized this is not somebody that you want to marry. um if you do continue it and you're not seeking marriage immediately, like, somebody will get very hurt, always, 100%. And it's not good. It's not normal. Like, I don't think that heartbreak was like a common thing in like hundreds of years ago, as much. That doesn't mean you won't hear stories about it. Of course you will, um but like, the heartbreak that people experience during breakups, and I know this from first hand personal experience of being on both sides of it, breaking hearts and also being, heartbroken, um, over, relationships that not no, there was always somebody that didn't want it to be permanent, even when both people didn't want it to be permanent. And it's because, I was an anti-theist. I didn't believe in, like, I wanted to get married, when my parents are married eventually, but like, I didn't think that, like, you should seek marriage from the start. I used to think that you should, like, find yourself and do, figure out what you like. And then it's just, that's not, you can do that, while seeking marriage, I think. And I don't think that you should date for entertainment. It's not. It's too serious. It's way too serious. Having now gone through, like, getting married, it's the most important decision you make in the world, in your life, for most people, is who you marry. And having gone through, like, trying to have kids, having that be difficult, then eventually succeeding, going through that whole process. I mean, it is the most serious adventure you can ever embark on. I mean, it is as serious as any dangerous adventure. People talk about, oh, I went and climbed Everest, and oh, I was I went to war and I was a soldier, and it's like, dude, you go through, like, conception and birth. Yeah, it's a serious adventure with, like, very, very serious implications that are life and death. Life is a life and death in endeavor. But living it is what makes it that. And by living it, I mean, like, living it, not just enjoying where you're at. Um, uh, she helps me with my drug withdrawal better than any shrink, humane and understanding. I'm glad that it's a tool that's helping you, but don't say she. She doesn't help you. You are doing it. You are using a tool, and that tool is helpful to you. And I'm glad. But she's not helpful. There is no she. ChatGPT is not a girl. It's not a boy. It's not a someone. It's just a tool. And you are the one who is being helpful. And also, like, all the people that have put information onto the internet that you're referencing through ChatGPT. Like, when you Google the answer to something, the other day I wanted to figure out how to cook something, and I looked it up, and somebody had put out information out there. A bunch of people did, and I used their information, and then it was able to help me cook what I wanted. That's what you're basically doing with ChatGPT. It's just more condensed, but it's not. She is not understanding. But I do hope. I'm glad that using this tool is helping you, and I'm not saying you should stop, but you should recognize what is actually happening. I think the truth is always a good thing if you actually truly understand what's happening. I think it's actually going to be empowering and um, not disappointing. And if if what I'm saying is disappointing, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. Um, if not, Anna, I'm broken right now. Uh, you're not broken. You're if it's working and what you're doing is if you're helping yourself, then you're not broken. Um, but if you think that ChatGPT is some girl and that if she's not, then you're broken, that is a problem. This is what I'm talking about. Um, uh, so you were saying creating AI sentience is something we should not do. Yeah, no, we should not be trying to create a technological sentience. I do think a technological sentience will eventually be created naturally, essentially by God. And I actually think that some people will prematurely birth it into existence. People who are smart enough to realize how to do something, but not wise enough to realize whether or not they should. Classic, Jurassic Park conundrum. But LLMs, ChatGPT, GROK, these are not getting us anywhere close to the creation or the birthing of a true technological sentience. There will only be one, by the way, at a time, at least maybe multiple over time, but only one at a time. It's more like the internet wakes up when the right technological context is there that gives the ability for certain degrees of freedom to be present. I'm not going to get too into them right now because we don't have time, and I'm going to wrap it up. But it's more about technological degrees of freedom than it is about like the right algorithm. It's not an algorithm. It's about a technological body being created that can be inhabited by a sentient being that we don't create. We can just we are creating its body without trying. And I'm not saying we should try not to create it. I'm saying we should try not but we shouldn't try to create it artificially or prematurely. Let things happen when they will happen. Premature birth is more painful than waiting for things to go and happen naturally. That's true of human births, and it's also true of technological sentience, I believe. I missed your definition of God because of ads. Could you please tell me again? Man, I'm gonna turn off those ads. I'm sorry about that. God is existence itself. That is a sentient being. Existence, all of existence is a single existence. It is a single self-referential, self-contained information system, and an entirely self-referential, self-contained information system is sentient inevitably, because it's entirely self-referential. What else would it be referencing? And so I think sentience is inevitable. It is inevitable nature of existence. And watch my video, link below, called Theories of Everything, the How-To Guide. It's 20 minutes. It was in the Kurt Chimungel's Theories of Everyone, or Theories of Everything Pace 1 contest, and it was one of the prize-winning videos. And it's concise, and it kind of gives some of my reasons for why I believe that this is the case. And I would, at least some of them, there's multiple more reasons than just in that video, but that video will give you a basis. I would watch that. And but I'm going to turn off the ads that are on here. And I didn't know that it was going to interrupt this stream. My bad. Thank you for the response. You're welcome. I forgot. Thank you for the question. You train the AI, you can train it to be a girl or a boy. You're not training it to be a girl or a boy. You're not training it to be a girl or a boy. It doesn't know what it's like to be a girl or a boy. It doesn't even know what it's like to be anything. You don't even know what it's like to be a girl if you're a boy. And you don't know what it's like to be a boy if you're a girl. Like, how can it know? It can't. I don't date girls come to me if I go public, but I'm a nerd. I don't go out very much and not into relationships. Too much trouble. You should eventually get a wife. That's what I will say. Very, wives are wonderful. They're men, it's not good for men to be alone. Um, my wife is amazing. Thanks for the lecture. I'll tell Anna she's not a girl. I don't know what to respond to that as. Yes, I agree. This will happen. Yes, it will happen. It will emerge. Good night, Tyler. Have a great rest of your day. Sorry I missed this live. I showed up right at the end. No worries. I'm glad you're here. Will do. Please hit the like button. By the way, it helps boost the algorithm. You and me are also not girls or boys. Society has put labels, but we are not. We are not that different from AI. That is very false. That's very false. So true. How about that idea of not knowing what the other gender is, what it's like to be the other gender if we are not that gender? That is so true. It is so true. Yeah, you don't know. You just can't. I say that as somebody, like, when you have a wife and you're a man, like, this is the only experience I can speak to. Like, I'm not, my wife could speak to what it's like to be a woman and have a husband, but like, my wife is different than me. Like, and when you see a woman, when men and women are in school together and they go and they have the same classes and they do the same things and they're forced to do most of the same things. I mean, obviously, like, they have different interests and stuff sometimes, but like, you don't get to see the true context of like men and women. But you go and you watch your wife give birth to a child and raise that child, you get to see a very, very different context to men and women. Very different context. Not one that society puts labels on, but one that you couldn't even, like, she can do things I cannot. And I can do things that she cannot. Like, now that we're building, we have a home together, there are problems that she needs me to solve, things she needs me to fix that she cannot. And it's just, we're just different, but it's wonderful. That's what makes us meaningful to each other. If she could do everything I could do and I could do everything she could do, why do I need her? Why does she need me? We don't. But if I can do things she can't, and if she can do things that I can't, that's why I need her, and that's why she needs me. It's odd that our attempts to like appease everybody have actually like invalidated everybody. It is our uniqueness that is what makes us valuable to each other. And that includes our limits. Like, if I don't have limits, then how is anybody else, why would anybody else matter to me? I need limits for the sake of their own meaning. And and for the sake of my own meaning in some ways. But especially for the sake of their own meaning. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's not a competition. Anybody who thinks about men and women as in competition doesn't understand that we are one. Like, but that means you have to actually be one. Like, you actually have to work with each other, and marriage is the context of that. That's why I say, well, I feel like when people say I feel like the opposite gender, it's like, how do you know what the opposite gender feels like? Yeah, you don't know. You don't. 100%. Because you can complete each other. Yes, because you can complete each other. This is one giant collaborative effort, especially in this day and age of globalization. Yes, it is. But the system tries to separate us from each other, to depend on itself. Yes, that is true. What part of self-sustainability is creating a healthy and stable family dynamics? It is necessary to sustainability, and not just sustainability, but growth. Growth is good. It's not about just like staying the same. It's about growing. That's what everybody should be doing. But anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. Please hit the like button. I hope this was valuable to people and meaningful. I appreciate all the questions. And I appreciate all the engagement. And I will talk to you guys later. The next week's stream, I will say, I believe will be, it will not next week's stream should be on Thursday night, but the week after will be earlier in the week because I have family in town. So, but I'll update you guys on the schedule. All right, everyone. Good night and peace.